Erica, and I'm here today with a review of Sweetbitter by Stephanie Danler. This is a book that recently came out, and I hadn't heard anything about it until the New York Times Book Reviews called it the Kitchen Confidential for the front of house. So Kitchen Confidential is a very famous memoir by Anthony Bourdain about what it is like to work in kitchens and restaurants, and this was supposed to be that, but for the people who work in the front of house, i.e. your bartenders, your servers, your floor managers, your bussers, your hosts, etc., which is what I do. So I was really excited about this. I generally stay away from books about food and books about restaurants because it's what I do for a living, and I love it most of the time, half of the time, but I find that a lot of like nonfiction, especially, or fiction especially, that is like novels that are set in restaurants or the characters are servers or something, it's very unrealistic. And it's like, this is not how this happens. It's kind of like romanticized almost. It's like, oh, this is such a fun job. You get to meet so many cool people and yada yada, which it is in a way, but there's like the dark and dirty side of the restaurant industry that people don't necessarily talk about except for in like memoirs like Kitchen Confidential. So I was excited about this. This is a novel. This is not a memoir. I believe it is loosely based on the author's experience working at a very nice restaurant in New York City, which is where this book takes place. Our protagonist, Tess, leaves everything behind in Montana or Missouri, I can't remember, and up and moves to New York City in her early 20s. The first job she gets is as a backwait in a very fancy restaurant, and the book from there kind of devolves into like this, I wouldn't call it a love triangle per se, but it's kind of got a romantic plot to it where there's the bad boy, she's really into him, but he has this best friend who's kind of a bitch, and it's sort of like that. Not my thing at all, but I liked this book a lot. And I liked this book because it was a very personal reading experience for me. And so I don't even know if I can review this book properly because I don't know if I can remove my own personal experience from my reading experience, if that makes sense. This book at parts rang so true for me that I was like crying and laughing at the same time because it was just hilarious. For those of you who don't know, I've worked in restaurants my entire adult life. I've been working in restaurants since I was 16, and it's what I do. I eat, sleep, and breathe food and service, and I currently manage a casual fine dining restaurant, and it's a lot of work. I have a staff of about 35 people who I'm in charge of, which is terrifying. And I mean, it's what I do. I spend 70 hours a week either at the restaurant or at home working on something for the restaurant. So I've never worked in a restaurant as nice as the one portrayed in this book. But I can say with some confidence that she's been there, she's done that. So like I said, I don't really know how to talk about this book because it was such an intensely personal reading experience for me. I didn't care terribly much for the kind of romantic plotline, which it's strange that I enjoyed the book and didn't care for that bit of it because it was like the majority of the book. I found Danler's writing to be a little bit overwrought at times. Like, it was nice and it was beautiful, but like she pushed a little bit too hard. It felt a little bit forced sometimes, and occasionally that would kind of make me take a step back, but overall, like I said, it was a really intensely personal book. I'm sure that if you have read it or plan on reading it, you will have, and you've never worked in the service industry, you may have questions like, are there really that many drugs in restaurants? Yes. Is everyone really sleeping with each other? Yes. And I didn't find any of it to be hyperbolic. It's completely realistic. You work your shift, you get off at midnight, you have a drink, you go out, you go home, you go to bed, you wake up the next day hungover, you're back at work at 4 p.m. and life starts over at that. kind of is the experience that I'm familiar with. No, I do not do this much cocaine. These characters do a lot of cocaine. I do not do that. But there is a serious drug and alcohol culture around restaurants, and I like that she didn't shy away from that, and I like that she didn't necessarily feel the need to preach about it or really punish her character for it. Her character throughout the book, Tess, the protagonist, is kind of just going with the flow. She's making new friends and kind of embracing this new existence that she's found. And I like that it was just what it was. So, again, I don't know that it's appropriate to call this a review of this book. I just kind of wanted to talk about it and kind of how it felt to read something that felt so intensely personal in novel form. And I think that we all experience that sometimes, but it's really rare for me to find my profession and my trade looked at through a lens such as this. And I feel like Stephanie Danler, doesn't put down the restaurant industry at all or look down upon it, which is a serious problem, I feel, personally in my life, where others look down upon me for what I do, and it's a constant struggle. And I like that it was just portrayed as a normal kind of state of existence, and it just rang so true. Like, okay, I'm going to read you a little bit. 49% of the job was the mechanics. Anyone can do this job. That's what I was always told about waitressing. I'm sorry, serving. Just memorize the table numbers and positions, stack up plates along your arm, know all the menu items and their ingredients, never let the water levels drop, never spill a drop of wine, bust the tables cleanly, mise en place, fire orders, know the basic characteristics of the basic grape varieties and basic regions of the entire wine world, know the origins of the tuna, pair a wine with the foie gras, know the type of animal the cheeses come from, know what is pasteurized, what contains gluten, what contains nuts, where the extra straws are, how to count, know how to show up on time. And what's the rest of it? I asked my trailer, out of breath, dabbing paper towels into my armpits. Oh, the 51%. That's the tricky stuff. And that's what the job is. Nobody's ever made me feel like... Not nobody. No novel set in restaurants or having to do with restaurants has never, ever made me feel like it's okay that I work in a restaurant and that I love the work that I do. And this book made me feel like it's okay that I work in a restaurant and I love the work that I do. And maybe that's really silly and overly emotional of me, but like so many things she say are so true. I mean, that's what my life is. I show up every day for work. I show up and one minute I'm sitting in interviews, hiring people, like very much on the HR side of things. The next minute I have to fire somebody. The next minute I have to replace a toilet handle because the toilet broke. The next minute I have a guest whose fork broke in their mouth or something ridiculous and they're all in a tizzy and I have to go talk to them and smooth that out. The next minute I'm in the back prepping potatoes because we've run out of French fries and it's the end of the world. And by the end of the night, I mean, literally, this is my everyday. So many things that have happened that I don't even know. I have no idea where the time went and I have no idea what just happened to me. It's a whirlwind of existence and I feel like she got that right. And so I really commend her for that. If you know more books like this one, I'm almost hesitant to ask, but if you have any recommendations for me, I'd love to hear them. I can't talk about this book in any sort of objective way. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And sorry for the rambling, and maybe this got a little bit too personal. Maybe you were looking for something else, but this is what this has become for me. This is definitely a book I'll reread in the future. Again, it's not without issue. It's not a book for everyone, but I feel like something happens to you when you read a book that kind of hits the nail on the head so hard. And that's what happened for me with this book. So I didn't even give it 5 stars. It was a 4-star book for me, which means I really, really liked it. But something about it is going to stay with me. And something about it just felt really self-affirming and really encouraging. And that is what reading is all about. I'm done being cheesy. I'm sorry. Bye.